So my name's Cameron Howarth. I'm an analyst in the financial markets department. I've been at the bank for just over 2 years. So I started in the graduate program just over 2 years ago. And I also studied at the University of Auckland. So while I was studying there, I did a Bachelor of Commerce in Economics, a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Statistics, and then a Masters of Commerce in Economics. So that took 5 years, then was at the bank for the last 2 years. And now I'm actually slightly back at university because I'm continuing to work at the bank and also doing a PhD there, also in economics.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorraine Lee. I am a senior analyst in the Supervision department. I've been at the bank for just over a year, and I'm also graduated from the University of Auckland. I did a Bachelor of Commerce in Economics and Finance. I continued with an honours degree in economics, and then following that I did a master's degree in economics, and then after university I completed a CFA charter program, and I'm currently a CFA charter holder.
Okay, so we've got some slides that we'll show you now and basically talk about the graduate program, talk about the intern program, talk about what it's like at the bank, and also for those who don't know, we'll go through what the bank actually does as well. So I'll just pop open those slides. So I think the way we'll probably do it is start off with just doing the presentation to begin with, and then if you type questions in the chat or think up questions, we'll come to it when we finish. 1 second. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So, Lorraine, do you want to talk about what we actually do?
Yes, so in my role at the Reserve Bank as a supervisor, so I'm in the supervision team, and we are responsible to maintain the financial health and the financial resilience of banks, insurers, NBDTs, and financial market payment settlement companies in New Zealand.
Yeah, so I'm in financial markets at the moment. I also worked in the economics department before that. And in all of those roles, I've basically been engaged on the monetary policy side of things. So working on, over the last few years in particular, it's been about what do we do when interest rates get to zero and we have to start finding other ways to stimulate the economy. So in terms of, I guess, the general Reserve Bank mandate and different things, so the central bank has the historic mandate of managing inflation, and that's one thing that you'll see in central banks all around the world, and also producing money. So banknotes, we don't actually print them out in New Zealand, we import them from Canada, but we put all the designs through and distribute it around New Zealand. That's a small part of what we do. So those are the main central bank functions. But then in New Zealand, we also have to regulate and supervise banks, finance companies, and insurers on top of that. As Lorraine mentioned, that's her job, and our supervision department has gone from being one of the smallest parts of the bank to actually being the largest, and also the part that's hiring the most people over the next few years as well. So that's a brief kind of overview of that side. Do you have anything else we forgot? No? Okay. So in terms of the grad program and the internship program, and essentially what's on offer, we take around 10 grads and 10 interns each year. And historically, all of that has been in Wellington, including the internships over summer. In the future, we are also now going to allow some people to join in the Auckland offices for the internships and for the grad program. But it's worth noting that if you're, for example, joining the grad program in the Auckland office, you still might have to rotate to Wellington at some point if you're rotating into a team which is heavily Wellington based. So we both work in the Auckland office, and that works well for us because my manager and my team is based in Auckland, and half of the team is up here now. And I think Lorraine, almost your entire team, or a big chunk of it is?
Yeah, a lot of the financial entities are in Auckland, so we're increasing our presence in Auckland to manage that relationship better with the entities we regulate.
Yeah. So those types of teams, you can do that, but there will be some other teams, such as some of the heavily economics focused ones, which are predominantly Wellington and don't really have Auckland staff yet. So still mostly Wellington based, but there's definitely flexibility if you don't feel like moving to try to work that out over the first few years. In terms of what's basically entailed in the programs, the internship program is essentially your standard November to February internship, where you basically work on one project over the whole time, have ownership over that project, and then present everything at the end. And if it's relevant, maybe publish the findings from that or something along those lines. And you'll be in one team, but you'll be experiencing lots of different things around the bank. And then you'll also have the opportunity when you finish the internship to then apply directly for the grad program before everyone else. So a lot of the interns will have a good chance of becoming graduates after they do extra assessment and stuff like that towards the end of the internship. In terms of the grad program, we've revamped this a lot, so it's very different now than what it was a few years ago, for example, when I did it. So essentially the program is a 3-year rotational program where each year you'll move between different departments. So you might spend your first year in financial markets, analyzing what developments in the US and China and writing summary papers for the Monetary Policy Committee. Then you might spend a year in supervision where you supervise ANZ and do those sorts of things. Then you might spend a year in the money and cash team looking at developing a central bank digital currency or something like that. So quite varied over the 3 years. And then after that, you basically pick a final placement, and then you can spend either a lot of time there or rotate to other teams. At that point, it's all informal and it will depend on the roles that are available. Should we go through the teams now in a bit more detail, maybe starting with supervision, I guess?
So we are the financial doctors that monitor the health of financial institutions. And within that, we have specialist teams that regulate banks, insurers, AML, CFT, and NBDT, so finance companies. And within that, if you join the Reserve Bank in the supervision team, you'll be involved in writing briefing notes and get familiar with disclosure requirements and recommend any recommendations of breaches of those disclosure requirements are required. And on top of that, within the supervision department, we are part of the Financial Stability Group, which extends to the Financial System Policy and Analysis team, which encompasses teams that form policy on prudential matters, from LVRs to OVR, to any policy that demands our financial attention that would threaten the health of our financial system. And also data and statistics are also part of the Financial Stability Group, who are responsible to meet internal needs in data and statistics. And they are our frontline staff to meet external statistic needs for our entities and for our stakeholders. And they also help to inform us from the dashboard.
Yeah, and so then the other team, other departments, so economics, financial markets, money and cash, kind of form the money group. So essentially you've got money and cash as the department which basically designs the banknotes and that type of thing, imports them, distributes them, manages them. But then there's a lot more innovation going on in that department as well now, because we've got things like central bank digital currencies, which require a lot of research and a lot of designing in the future if we're ever going to have something like that at some point. And so that's kind of getting money into existence. Then the economics department essentially has to monitor the economy to make sure that the money retains its value. So this is where managing inflation and that type of thing comes into it. So the economics teams do a lot of work on forecasting the economy, looking at current conditions, and also doing research onto how is the central bank's actions affecting the economy. So what's the impact of interest rates on housing, that type of thing. And then financial markets have basically the job of implementing a lot of the monetary policy. So in order to get various financial measures where we want them to be, we have a trading team, portfolio management, who basically buy and sell a bunch of assets throughout each day, intervening where things get out of hand and making sure that we have a good deal of coverage over what's happening and the ability to stop things happening that look bad. And then also we have an international markets team who monitor a lot of international developments, somewhat similar to the forecasting team in economics, but a lot more, I guess, hands-on rather than theoretical and slightly less quantitative what they do. And then balance sheet design, which is my team, does a lot of work on the quantitative easing program in particular. So we provide a lot of advice based on to the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, on essentially how much should we be buying as part of this big asset purchase program. So that's kind of the different departments that are available throughout the internship. So just to touch, I think there's a couple of things I'll just mention at this point as well before we talk about specifics in the grad role. So just to stop on some of the things that we'll be looking for. So we are primarily looking for people who have either finished or are about to finish a postgraduate qualification when it comes to grad roles. So ideally, you'll be doing economics, finance, mathematics, accounting, or law, and you'll be in the process of completing that when you apply for a grad role. So if you're in the start of your postgrad program, that's great. If you've still got more years remaining, so maybe you're in your last year of undergrad, but you've got a full year of postgrad study coming up next year, then you can apply for the internship program. And obviously, if you're at that stage in your study, you're not going to know for certain whether you'll actually be doing postgrad or not. That's okay. We're not going to force you to go and do a postgrad qualification after you finish your internship. We know people haven't made their mind up. But that's basically how you'll decide kind of which one you should be applying for. Obviously, yeah, depends on whether you intend on finishing the postgrad or not. In terms of what we're looking for, those 5 degree choices I mentioned, economics, finance, law, maths, accounting, those are basically the ones we're limited to at the moment. So you have to be studying one of those. But if you're not doing postgrad, we will consider your application if you're going to be working towards a CFA or a CA qualification as well. There's a kind of a broad range of things in terms of extracurriculars and GPA that we'll consider. The soft guidance is around a B+ average GPA is what we'll be looking for as kind of a minimum, but it'll be holistic. So if you've got lots of good leadership or work experience or something like that, then that can help you as well. And one final thing which is important to note is that for the grad programs specifically, you do have to be either New Zealand citizen or New Zealand permanent resident. But if you're not, there are other jobs at the bank that you can apply for. So for example, we advertise analyst positions as well, which are similar roles to the grad program. And you can try to apply for those without having New Zealand citizenship or permanent residency. It's just the grad program where that's a requirement. So moving on to, I guess, some of the things that'll be covered in when you actually start as a grad. So you get the buddy for basically the first few months at the bank. So this will be someone in your team. It'll either be a former graduate or a younger person who knows what it's like to be starting at the bank, and they'll help you out and help you get settled in. And then as you go, you'll get a lot of training workshops and exercises. So I think there's usually about 2 different workshops on business writing, teaching you how to write really well. Then presentations on presentation skills. So 1 or 2 day workshops on that. And then there's also a budget as well to do specific training relevant to what you're doing. So if you're in forecasting and economics, then you might be sent to a 4 or 5 day forecasting bootcamp at some point during your first year. Or if you're in financial policy or something like that, then there'll be other conferences or training experiences for that as well. And that kind of continues to ramp up during your time there. Yeah. So, and then as I said, the work will, because you're doing 1 year at a time, the work will kind of evolve as you go. It'll vary a lot by department as to what you'll be doing. But you will get a lot of responsibility right from scratch. So for example, a first year grad in forecasting might be presenting the GDP forecast to the Monetary Policy Committee after the first 4 weeks they've been at the bank. If that's their role, then they'll be doing that straight away. So this is just a quote here from Rohan, who was with us last year, talking about what it was like to be a summer intern. So the intern program, you essentially have your one project that you focus on during the whole time you're there, which is quite nice because everyone's project is different and you have complete ownership over that project. So you'll have something that's quite well defined. You can say, this is what I'm working on, and then you can present everything you finished by the end. So the projects, again, will vary hugely based on the different teams you're in, but you can see a little bit here as to what you might be experiencing. Ooh, that's a terrible picture there. What we're offering, Lorraine, do you want to maybe outline some of the different perks and benefits here?
Yeah, so we have flexible working hours that will suit your work-life balance. If you're only early morning person or a late riser, so that's up to you and your manager to sort of decide the informal arrangements. And we have flexi leave, which you can purchase up to 4 weeks per year. $500 a year for your wellness budget, and that includes gym memberships. If you need glasses like myself, if you need some dental hygiene checks or any sort of things like that. And we have $800 subsidy for work from home. As we know this year, most of us have experienced that, so it's great to set up to work comfortably from home. And we also offer a 4% KiwiSaver if you contribute 4% or above. And our graduate starting salary is $58K, and intern is $44K on a pro rata basis.
Yeah, and just to clarify with the annual leave, you get 4 weeks of annual leave, and then you can buy an extra 4 weeks as the flexi leave. Yeah, so you don't have to buy. You get annual leave for free to start with. Yeah, so the $58K for the graduate salary is quite competitive compared to what you might see in other places, especially given the work-life balance. So compared to other private sector places, some grads might be working slightly longer hours. So it's definitely good on, for example, an hourly basis. And there will be some review to that as well. So it will keep increasing over time. So in terms of culture, so this is Stephen. He likes to say we have a relaxed but ambitious culture. So maybe we'll break that down. And do you want to tackle the relaxed part or the?
Yeah. Yep. So at the bank, we have a social club, which we get together to do bingo nights and quiz nights, and we have an annual ball and fun activities for everyone. At the start of the year, we have welcome back ice cream for the Wellington office and cupcakes for the Auckland office, and there's sports teams over lunchtime. It's for everyone to sort of get together and have some fun.
Yeah, and I guess on the ambitious side of it, one thing that makes the bank quite unique is that there's a lot of people kind of coming and going from lots of interesting places around the world. So we have lots of people from other central banks and lots of people who leave here to go to other central banks as well, to other private sector places like investment banks in Sydney and New York, as well as either coming from, for example, the person I used to sit next to finished their Masters of Public Administration at Harvard and taught me a lot of stuff about speech writing, and now he's the acting chief economist at the Ministry of Health. So I guess from that background of different people, you end up with both a really kind of diverse culture in terms of backgrounds. There's lots of people from different countries, but also ends up being, I guess, ambitious in the sense that we recognize that not everyone will be staying here forever. And so there's a lot of great opportunities to think about and talk about those types of things while you're here as well. And one thing, I was talking with a colleague about this yesterday, and they said that they've just joined here from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And one thing they noticed that was different was that because this is such a small central bank, but we do a whole wide range of things, there's lots of really interesting things for everyone to be talking about the whole time as well. Like everyone's tackling major issues on a daily basis. And so that kind of makes you tackle bigger things, which, you know, maybe leads towards that ambitious part of it. But is there anything else to add on the culture?
Perhaps on the ambitious part, we have lots of committees across the bank to sort of voice your reasoning or to be challenging to other people, other perspectives, and that really helps me to learn and sort of build on that ambitious culture.
Yeah, so just maybe an example of that. This morning, for example, I was in a half-hour call, which is where we basically finalize the weekly purchase of different bonds and stuff like that we carry out. And so even though I've only been at the bank a couple of years, I still speak in that every week and contribute something towards that. And so, yeah, there's no barriers in terms of young people or grads joining the bank and being able to contribute on those things. Okay, so in terms of values, we have the 3 I's, integrity, innovation, and inclusion. I think integrity is particularly relevant at an institution like this because we do a lot of policy making. And in most of our policies, there are winners and there are losers. And so it is essential that we are professional and exercise sound, logical, well-reasoned judgment in everything we do, because people are going to hate us pretty much no matter what we do in some of these policies. So it's important to maintain integrity in everything we do because it will affect our decisions and will affect the bank as well. Innovation. So historically, the bank has been known quite a lot internationally for being innovative. We were the first central bank to adopt an inflation targeting regime back in the 1990s, which now most developed central banks do. And then we also have more recent innovations as well. The Bank Financial Strength Dashboard is one way to let people know exactly how relatively strong or weak their banks might be compared to others, which we set up a few years ago. And we pretty consistently win awards at the Central Banking Awards, which is quite good for such a small bank compared to some other ones internationally. And then inclusion as well. Obviously working together for a more effective bank, but being inclusive is a very important way of getting to that stage. And so there's, again, a lot of work being done on this, particularly over the last couple of years with our new governor and new mandates too. Anything else to add on that side?
I would say that from my experience, inclusion is quite evident in the LSAT program where we all worked across departments to sort of make sure that was effective and to make sure that the integrity part of our decision is all delivering its intended outcome. So that's, and externally as well, because we are part of the Council of Financial Regulators, so we work quite closely with the FMA, Commerce Commission, MB, and NZBA on sort of the new regulation and things that's coming to affect us.
Cool. So to outline exactly how the process is going to work. So this is the same for interns and for grads. Start off with your pretty standard online application, CV, etc. Online assessments are the next stage after that. So that's essentially, these are aptitude-based psychometric tests. So it's basically your verbal, numerical, abstract reasoning. I think these are quite short, you're looking at about 12 minutes. So these are fairly straightforward. Then you've got the video interview. So video interview might sound stressful if you haven't done one before. Basically, you're given 4 behavioral questions. They're not technical ones about solving problems. It's basically an opportunity to talk about yourself and let us see a bit of your personality. And you get multiple attempts to record what you're saying. I think you get 2 attempts for each question. And basically, you just record yourself answering and then send it in. So at that stage, once we've thinned the field down a little bit, the rest of the candidates are invited down to Wellington for an assessment centre, which we'll cover shortly. Then there's basically reference checks, and then offers should be sent out, I think it's around May. We're looking to get these out. So online applications are open now, and they are closing on the 31st of March. So that's kind of the key thing to think about at the moment. So a bit more on the assessment centres. So this is basically a half day in Wellington. And so what we're doing here is basically, we'll give you an introduction to the bank, so a more detailed version of what we're presenting to you now. And then you'll be given a written exercise, which is basically essay type questions to answer so we can see what your writing ability is like. And then you'll have an individual interview, which is with 2 or 3 members on a panel. And so there'll be a mixture of kind of competency-based technical questions here, questions where you can talk about yourself and your experience and how you work with a team and that type of thing. And then throughout the day, you'll also be paired up with a recent graduate who will take you around the bank. And so you can see what the building's like, meet some of the people, and do those types of things. And I think we're getting most of the way through. So I'm just going to share the sound on this and then run through this recap video.
Hi, this video is a quick look at our graduate and intern program at the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. But first, here's a short greeting just for you.
Pāho nei te reo karanga ki ngā mātā waka o te motu, ki ngā tai o te moana nui a kiwa, ki ngā hau e whā o te ao. Nau mai, piki mai, kake mai, hala mai rā ki te pūtea matua. Hala mai rā ki ngā ringa e tūwhera atu nei, ngā ringa e manaki nei i te tāne māhuta o te ao pūtea. Hala mai ki roto ki ngā kaupapa e pīkauzia nei e mātou hei oranga mo te katoa. Ko te kaupapa matua, e toitu i te ohanga, e huai, e orai, Aotearoa whānui. Nau mai, haere mai rā ki te pūtea matua.
Now, number 1, who we are. Our purpose is to promote a sound, efficient, and dynamic monetary and financial system for New Zealand. Our vision is to be the best central bank and a great team, which means we need talented graduates and interns to join us on this journey. Here is Christian to tell you a little bit more.
Historically, the Reserve Bank has been best known as a pioneer for inflation targeting in our monetary policy area. As a full central bank, we do monetary policy, financial supervision, regulation, currency, payment systems, the whole breadth of central banking. Where we're trying to take things now is to be at the forefront of all of those aspects. And that's what really best means to us, to be best right across all of the aspects of central banking. So we need the best people to come and join us to do that.
Number 2, our culture. So, what is it like to work here? Well, the culture is social and relaxed while still being highly productive and innovative.
The thing that the Reserve Bank offers is a good work-life balance. So you've got that sense of pride working for a public sector. What we do matters for everyday New Zealanders. So we've all driven to that purpose, but at the same time we care a lot about our well-being, the people that we work with, and make sure that we create an environment that supports a healthy work-life balance.
Number 3, the Grad and Intern program. You will typically work in the following Reserve Bank departments: economics, financial markets, data and statistics, supervision, money and cash, or financial system policy and analysis. To gain the breadth of experience needed to understand the world of central banking, graduates typically rotate between 2 to 3 departments over a 3-year period. Find out more and apply for the program by visiting our website. Goodbye and stay well wherever you are.